I'm Noah Shea, a 2023 alum and graduate assistant of LaSalle University's Solstice MFA program in creative writing. Welcome again to our summer 2023 evening reading series, with today's edition featuring guest faculty member Jarrett Lerner, faculty member Laura Williams McCaffrey, and guest faculty member Leah Falk. This is the fifth in a series of 7 events and a part of the series of this 10-day residency, taking place here in Auburndale, Massachusetts, and kicking off our fall semester. As we open this physical and virtual space, I would like to acknowledge that the territory on which LaSalle University stands is that of the Pawtucket and Massachusetts people. LaSalle's campus is a place to honor and respect the history of the Native and Indigenous communities who continue to reside in the area currently known as Massachusetts, and the continued efforts of their community leaders to ensure that history is not oversimplified or lost. This statement is one small step in acknowledging the difficult history that brought us to reside on this land and to help us seek our understanding of our place within that history. Ownership of land is itself a colonial concept. We acknowledge that the ideal restorative measure is to return land to Native and Indigenous communities. The Solstice MFA program at LaSalle University seeks ways to be part of a better future going forward. As we grow, we pledge to seek out Native writers for our faculty and guest faculty. And meanwhile, we have established the DeBus Fellowship for Native and Indigenous Writers, which will be granted to an incoming Solstice student annually. We hope to inspire others to take action as well. One way you might do so is to consider a gift to the Native Land Conservancy based in the area currently known as Mashpee, Massachusetts. More information will be in the chat and can be found on flyers on the book table. And now for tonight's reading. First up, we will have Jarrett, who will be introduced by Solstice alum Cindy Abdallah. Then we have Laura, who will be introduced by myself. And then finally, we will conclude with Leah, who will be introduced by Solstice alum Rebecca Connors. Cindy, come on up to the mic.
Author, illustrator Jarrett Lerner is the award-winning creator of the Engineered series of middle grade novels, the Giger the Robot series of early chapter books, the activity books Give This Book a Title and Give This Book a Cover, the Nat the Cat series of early readers, and the Hunger Heroes series of graphic novel chapter books, of which Mist Meal Mayhem won the Otter Award in Washington State after librarians and thousands of young readers voted it as their favorite. Jarrett is also the creator of the recently released illustrated novel in verse, A Work in Progress, which was picked for the May and June 2023 Kids Indie Next List. In addition to writing, drawing, and visiting schools and libraries across the country, Jarrett co-founded and co-organizes the hashtag Kids Need Books and hashtag Kids Need Mentors projects and regularly spearheads fundraisers for various reading and book-related causes. He is also the founder and operator of Jarrett Lerner's Creator Club. Jarrett states in his profile that books need to be ones that kids will not only love to read, but ones that will help them in their journey to becoming stronger, more confident readers. Because getting kids reading and voicing their thoughts and feelings about books, that's the real task. Please give Jarrett Lerner a warm welcome.
I don't remember saying that, but it sounds awesome. So hi, my name is Jarrett Lerner. I'm an author and illustrator of children's books. I publish middle grade and younger. So everything from the first books that kids read up through middle school and a little bit into high school. And I have built, I'm going to read you 2 books, the very beginnings of 2 books. I'm not going to read you. Well, I do have some books that are short enough to read in their entirety, but I'm just going to read you the beginning of 2 books, building off of what I talked about in the lesson today. These are 2 books that are known as hybrids. So they incorporate text and visual elements in the language of comics in particular. So for those who attended the chat, the class today, these are two of my hybrids. One of them is out. One of them will be out in July of 2024, I guess it will be. I'm finishing it up now, so I'm going to be reading you a draft. So I spent years building a reputation as someone who made humorous, irreverent books that made even the most reluctant readers want to read. And then this book, my 15th book, I took a left turn after introducing myself and establishing this reputation and wrote an illustrated novel in verse based on my experiences of being body shamed and bullied and developing eating disorders and body dysmorphia and depression. So when I announced that book, there was a lot of head scratching. It was very warm and nice and kind, but there was a lot of like, this is the dude who wrote those farting robot books? What's happening? But it's been beautiful, and we all are dealing with something and have something going on. So I'm going to read you a little bit of this book, which we have available, and then I'm going to read you a little bit of a lighter one to pass it on. So this is a work in progress, and I was asked to give a trigger warning. So this book deals with all of those things, body shaming and disordered eating. Though this is just the intro. So it's framed as a kid's notebook, and the protagonist is in 7th grade, but it starts with a flashback. So it's hard to see. The pages are a little bleached on the projector, but there's a line down here. This is an open notebook. So here's the right page and here's the left page. I always think back to 4th grade. I was minding my business, hanging out in the hallway with Dave and Andrew and Devin, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and saw a kid, Nick Fisher, standing there. Nick was in my grade and small for his age. In 4th grade, he looked more like a 3rd grader, or even a 2nd grader. And I don't know if it was because of that or because of something else he had going on in his life, but he always went around already halfway to angry. He was the kind of kid who'd snap at you for no reason if you just looked at him the wrong way on the wrong day. All of which is why I was kind of worried when I turned around and saw it was Nick who tapped me. That and the fact that he was already scowling. I knew right then that whatever his reason for getting my attention, it couldn't be good. You're fat, Nick said. No. He spat it, that word. He spat it at me like it was the worst one he knew. Like I'd committed a crime and he wanted to make sure I knew I was guilty. You're fat, Nick said, and the whole entire hallway fell silent. Everyone was looking. Everyone was listening. At first, I was too stunned to do a thing. My brain was racing, my heart pounding, but the rest of me, frozen still. All I could do was stare at the shark showing off its teeth on Nick's t-shirt. Then Dave, he set a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Will," and for whatever reason, that broke the spell. And then I got out of there as fast as I could. Something like that happens to you, something like what happened to me in that hallway with Nick Fisher in 4th grade, and it never leaves your head. It's in there forever, permanently. The memory might as well be tattooed on your brain. It'll replay again and again and again and again, on bad days, of course, but on good days too. On days that had been good until, bam, it sneaks up on you. It just pops out of the blue. And it's not long before you don't even need the Nick Fishers of the world to be there to tell you what they think of you, what the whole entire world thinks of you. That you are less than, you are inferior, you are an animal not worthy of kindness or consideration or respect. Soon enough, you take care of saying all of that for them. You start thinking just like they do. You start hurling the insults at yourself. You become your own bully. and you do the job better than anyone else possibly could. So those are the first few poems of a work in progress. The rest of the book, Will's little diary journal, follows his descent into a much deeper, darker place and ultimately shows a way out of it. He doesn't really heal. It's not tied up with a nice little bow, but you present sort of, he sees the path to a much better place and takes a first step down that road. It's over there if you want to look through more of it and see the different ways that the visuals are integrated with the text. And now, really quickly, I just want to leave you with something much lighter. Thank you. So I've already changed the cover for this. I'm finalizing the cover right now. So this is a mock-up cover. But I wanted to leave you with something slightly lighter and show the students who came today a different version of a hybrid. So Scare School Diaries is another diary, but it's written by a ghost named Bash, who was being sent off to Scare School, which is where all of the scary creatures go to learn how to be scary. Because ghosts and monsters and vampires and bats don't just be born scary. They have to go and learn. So Bash is going and he's nervous. His sister has all of the family ghost talent. He has none. What if his roommate's a troll or a snot monster or a vampire? He's terrified. So here, I'll just read to you a couple quick comics and show you what this hybrid looks like. Especially, I think it's pertinent for those who were in the class today. So here they are arriving at Scare School. Bash is not very happy. His dad is saying, "Here we are, Bashy. There's nothing to worry about, son. You'll be fine. You're going to do great." The door has opened, and you'll notice there's a little headless creature there. "You sure are. I'm Headmaster Dave, and you must be Bash. Now come on in. Can't be late on your first day." And then the dad is saying, "Oh, he seems nice. I did it. I survived my first day," etc., etc., etc. Here's an introduction of all of our teachers. We got Headmaster Dave, Mr. Crane, Miss Graves, Professor Sneck, Captain Loosebeard, who's the school cook, and Miss Scully. The kids, we have Itzy, who's a kind spider, Vlad and Vicky, who are mean vampires. Wes is a werewolf, Mimi is a snot monster, Zara is a zombie, Mumford's a mummy, and Batsley is a bat. And yeah, this is what the interior of this hybrid looks like. So you can just flash through a couple more pictures. Here they are going to bed at night. Itzy, are you awake? Yeah, what's up, Bash? Oh, well, I was just, have you ever slept away from home before? No, this is my first time. Oh, same. I miss it. My bed, all my house's sounds. Me too, except for the sound of my dad snoring. You know, I miss it, but I'm also excited to be here. I didn't think I'd ever say this, but I'm excited too. Good night, Bash. Good night, Itzy. Just kidding. And then we have school, etc., etc. But those are two, so this book will be out next year. Those are two wildly different hybrids, which would make more sense if you were at the thing today, but books in which incorporate both text and comics, which I believe is sort of the wave of the future. And Laura, who will be reading also tonight, in 2016, published a book that incorporated comics and was wildly ahead of the curve. And it sounded like you said the publishers weren't sure about doing that, but you were ahead of your time. Because 7 years later, I think it's the wave of the future. So, thank you guys so much for letting me share it.
Thank you, Jarrett. Hi again, everyone. It's my honor tonight to introduce faculty member Laura Williams McCaffrey to the podium. There are so many wonderful things to say about Laura, it would be impossible to fit them all into this brief introduction. but hopefully I can give a thorough summary. Laura was born and grew up in the beautiful state of Vermont. She moved to New York City to attend Barnard College at Columbia University, and after graduating, she returned to Vermont and began working as a school librarian. Laura is a firm believer in the idea that the arts belong in education, and in accordance with this idea, she's taught writing and literature at the Peckham School, which is an independent, alternative, and state-approved school for children grades 6 through 12 in Montpelier, Vermont. She also has taught writing at Champlain College in Burlington since 2018. This comes as a surprise to none of us that know Laura. She is an excellent teacher, someone who can strike the perfect balance between being kind and supportive, as well as someone who understands when a student needs to be pushed outside of their comfort zone. Laura was my mentor during my critical thesis semester. And that was the scariest semester of Solstice for me. Without her guidance, I do not think I could have been as successful in this program. But Laura's contributions to the world of art extend far beyond what I have already mentioned. She has served as fiction editor for the Young Adult Review Network. Her own fiction has been published in a number of literary magazines, including Solstice Literary Magazine, Soundings Review, Cicada, and the YA Review Network. Her short story, Into the Vast, won the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators 2014 Magazine Merit Award for Fiction. Laura is also the author of 3 novels, Marked, Water Shaper, which was selected reading on the 2007 New York Public Library's Books for Teenage lists, and Aaliyah Walking, which was named an International Reading Association's notable book and was nominated for the annual Teens Top 10 Books. It was also nominated for Vermont's Dorothy Canfield Fisher Award. If you have yet to read any of these titles, please check them out after the readings have finished at the sales table. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Laura Williams McCaffrey.
So good to see you all. Now subconsciously because I put on lipstick and didn't think about the mask. So it's all over me. I apologize. I also apologize if I seem a little out of it. In the last 2 weeks, I have hosted many bridesmaids. I have met one of my daughter's one daughter's girlfriend for the first time. I have been to my other daughter's wedding and met 40 Irish people from Ireland, who I'm now related to, and survived a flood in Vermont that is the worst pretty much since 1927, and was able to make my way down here. So, you're saying, or I'm losing track of things, or I've forgotten something you told me, I'm apologizing way in advance. This goes for the entire week. It's a great pleasure to read with everybody and to, of course, see this wonderful work up in front of us just before me. And I'm looking forward to Leah's reading as well. I'm going to read something new. And I'm going to read a little short, but this is a first chapter of kind of a young middle grade. Near the glitter sparkle of Loon Lake on the bank that was all trees and no houses, Alder flew among the swaying reeds, searching for cobwebs. She also was searching for trash. A ticker or spinner, a metal lid or a cup top or foil, a rubber band, a plastic bag, a bit of string, a ribbon, a fishing lure, a chipped dish, a buckle, a snap, a charm or chain that Alder had seen giants wear around their wrists or necks. Giants dropped all kinds of things and didn't even miss them. Alder glanced in the direction of the other side. Though reeds stood tall between her and the far end of Loon Lake, the other side, a dangerous, miraculous place where docks stretched into the water, where giants' houses crouched on the slope, red or white or wooden brown, with shiny windows like square eyes and with peaked roofs. And all around, everywhere on the other side, lay trash treasures, waiting for her to scoop them up, cradle them carefully, and bring them back to her workshop, where she used the treasures to invent fabulous inventions, like the one she was using right now, her supremely stupendous spider web wrapper. But she wasn't really supposed to fly to the other side, only when flying there was absolutely, positively necessary. She sighed and sank a little, her toes almost dragging on the ground, her sack of cobwebs for Mom's apothecary brushed the mud. The sack wasn't even half full. She flew on, and she tried not to look at the spongy mud between the reeds, where there might be trash treasures. She tried to only look at the swaying stalks where spiders were most likely to spin webs. She could hear the hush-shush of breeze and wind reeds, and faintly the lilting hum of sprite magic in the forest, which could be Grandpa, but could be any sprite out flying or walking. Would one tiny glance around for trash treasures hurt, or even a few tiny glances? Tiny glances would barely take any time at all. She looked for colors or lights, for spiny or jagged somethings that weren't part of reeds or mud, grass or stone. Nothing. The problem was that giants only came to this side of the lake to hike or to lie in the sun. Some swung from an elm tree branch near the shore and plunged into the water. Near her family's willow tree stood an old abandoned dance hall where, Grandpa said, giants used to spin and stomp and swirl. But now the big slumping building was home to starlings and spiders, mice, weasels, pigeons, and a mama cat with 4 kittens. A gust of wind blew Alder sideways. She fluttered her wings faster to stop herself from knocking into a stalk. She saw a glitter ahead. Fishing line? She zoomed. No, it was spider silk, strung stalk to stalk for a web, but many threads had ripped and they waved in the breeze. She sighed. Mom needed spider silk. She flew close and landed lightly, the muck cold under her feet. She scanned the glinting silk threads for signs that the spider might come back and reweave the web. The threads looked abandoned. So she plucked all the sticky silk threads from the reed stalks. Then she wound them into a ball, and she tucked the ball into her sack with the other spider silk she collected. The sack hung only a little heavier on her shoulder. She still needed more silk for the apothecary. She looked through the reeds, beige and brown and green. Beyond that, air and trees, water and sky, no glimmer of silk or of trash treasures. If she searched from up higher, cobwebs might be easier to see. She could look over a larger stretch of reeds and shore for spider silk, and she might happen to see trash treasures too. If they were near cobwebs, she could just pick them up with the cobwebs. That wouldn't take any extra time at all, or barely any. She launched up and flew through the reed stalks higher, higher still to a young pine. It had a branch that was a little flat on the top, perfect for standing. She landed gently on the sharp bark so it wouldn't prick her feet too badly. Then she looked down at the long line of reeds and at the stony shore of the lake. The glitter of the lake caught her eye as its waves sang, lap flash, lap flash. She couldn't help staring out across the water at the lake's widest stretch of blue-green sparkle. Afraid she might see the ladies, and also hoping she would. No sprite had seen the ladies in quite a long while. Like other ancients, the ladies used to live anywhere they wanted, but now only lived in the deepest, darkest places, furthest from giants. And that's where their magic pooled, instead of soaring on wind currents and rippling up shorelines. The ladies' magic was stronger than sprites. Their magic fed trees or bushes or brambles and helped them grow tall or wide, or however they usually grew when the soil and rain were exactly perfect for them. Or the magic that helped trees or the magic that helped trees or bushes or brambles to rock quick, back into the dirt. They had tricky magic too, stronger tricky magic than sprites, glitter dust for bewildering giants and foxes or whatever was chasing you, lightning flashes without thunder, whispering sounds to set free on the wind. Also, the ladies could tell your future, though they often wouldn't. or so the grandmoms and grandpa said. She could hear their magic faintly, like the echo of a loon call, the rustle of wind rising. But she could only see the lake's water and the water bug, no ladies. Beyond, the other side, where many giants lived, along with many more house brownies than sprites. On the shore of the other side stretched the square dock, below the red giant house, the long dock, the 3 wooden chairs sitting on it, below white giant house with a peaked roof, a brown giant house with a narrow strip of dock that had pots full of chrysanthemums. And at the far edge of the giant houses, where they ended and the trees began, the half-cracked and sinking dock connected to the abandoned giant house that looked strangely like stacked boxes and rectangles. One rectangle stood tall like a tower. Only rats and ravens lived in the abandoned house, no giants. And all around, Alder knew, though she couldn't see, everywhere on the other side lay trash treasures. There were bottle caps and foil, hairbands and charms, toothpicks and tin lids and glass bits, all waiting for her to pick them up. There could be cobwebs over there too, more cobwebs than over here. The apothecary really needed cobwebs, so maybe it was absolutely positively necessary for her to go to the other side. Mom was busy in the apothecary. Grandpa was off walking in the pines. Her older sister Rowan was at forest school until winter solstice. The littles, well, who knew what troubles the littles were into? She was probably on her own for the rest of the day, maybe the night too. Unless Mom rang the bell and called her back to ask about the spider silk and everything else from her long, long list of chores. Alder had started to suspect that Mom was trying to keep her so busy that she didn't have time to collect trash treasures or to invent in her workshop. And then across the lake, a light winked on where light wasn't supposed to be. A bright white light on the half-cropped and sinking dock. Inside the abandoned house, orange-yellow light moved on, shining from the first floor's panel of windows. Orange-yellow light steadily shining like giants' machine-made lights, not candlelight. But only ravens and rats lived in that house. On the half-cracked dock, a shadowy form, a giant, walked across the light. Then the giant shrunk, crouching or sitting. This was news, big news. News Mom and Grandpa absolutely, positively would want to know more about. Alder shouldered her sack. She leapt from the tree limb, and she flew toward the glaring light.
Hello, everyone. Hey, my name is Rebecca Connors, pronouns she, her, and I am a poetry alum of the Solstice Residency MFA in creative writing. And I'm here tonight to introduce Leah Falk. And I'd like to begin my introduction by reading just a few lines of one of her poems. And the title is, she says this painting on her child's first birthday, The World Unfolding. And this poem is from the Everyday Pandemic series from City of Silence. The time between gatherings meanders on the year's grid, a river forced northward like a graph that shows the country repeating mistakes in 2 different centuries. Absence takes the page, swims in it like ocean. No direction, but float. As I read these lines from her poem, I'm reminded how deeply the pandemic has impacted me and how the collective trauma of isolation and uncertainty made mothering a completely new experience. And yet at the same time, this poem and the others in the series reiterate to me how poetry is a place of connection and comfort. Leah is a poet, writer, and arts educator, administrator. She's the author of Other Customs and Practices, and to look after and use. Her poems have been selected for Best New Poets 2018, the Beulah Rose Poetry Prize from Smartish Pace, nominated for the Pushcart Prize, and featured on Verse Daily, Poetry Daily, and in publications including the Kenyon Review, Field, Brush, Gulf Coast, and Electric Literature. Her critical and personal essays have appeared in Los Angeles Review of Books, Haaretz, Hey Alma, Michigan Quarterly Review Online, and elsewhere. She's received support for her writing from Sundress Academy for the Arts, Vermont Studio Center, the Yiddish Book Center, and Asylum Arts. Leah is a graduate of the Helen Zell Writers Program at the University of Michigan and of Oberlin College. And now she is the Director of Education and Engagement at Penn Live Arts, and she lives in Philadelphia with her husband and daughter. And here is poetry bringing us together once again. It is my honor to welcome to the podium Leah Falk.
Earrings now. Thank you, Rebecca, for that really lovely and generous introduction. And yeah, pandemic, which is what this book is about. Primarily, I'm going to read mostly from my new book, Other Customs and Practices. And before I get started, I just want to share that this book is really in conversation with an archival document. Around the turn of the 20th century, an ethnographer and playwright named S. Ansky went out on a mission to document the folkways of the Jews of the Kielo settlement, the area of the Russian Empire where Jews were permitted to live at the time, and with the goal of just collecting an exhaustive sense of the Jewish life cycle in that territory. Unfortunately, World War I broke out before he was able to realize his most ambitious goals for that program, but what survives is this incredible 2083 questionnaire, originally in Yiddish, which is the lingua franca of that community. And the questionnaire alone highlights all of these folklore practices, superstitions, ways of interfacing with the Jewish faith, many of which survive in some form elsewhere in the world, and many of which were lost. So you'll hear a few poems that begin with questions, and those questions are the English translations of questions from the questionnaire. I'm going to begin with a poem not in that category called Questionnaire. Questionnaire. Is it a custom to play old songs at the piano, to give the child a useful sadness from the start? What is written in holy books about this? Once a woman staggered alone through a field as her pain crescendoed, drowned out her heart. What grew there that kept Adam so busy weeping? Even in the womb, a hand grasps and reaches for what it can't have. This year, winter oranges freeze on the trees for lack of want. She must have wondered, would this pain name her? On a drive across the country's heart, ripe sheaves of wheat whisper the forgotten songs of women, composed in a notation that blood washes away. Under the words of the song, who cries out in Exodus, wondering if her tongue will remain holy, or somewhere in her body's desert, turn away from her. On hands and knees in the mud, she hears the wheat hiss her new name, Chaya, the living one. Chava, Chaya, what songs were sung to welcome you? You who were of meaning and offering, gathered from the corners of the a poem that does begin with one of those questions. 41. Is there a belief that the request of a pregnant woman must not be refused? What is the reason for this? When she visits, my mother wants to talk about food. what she ate years ago to make the baby move. What meals seemed like emergencies, pancakes with syrup, midnight burgers, each bite a brick in some structure she believed would keep me, fort of fiber and starch. Each mouthful a wish thrown in a fountain, heavier each day with coins. My own pregnant want so far is quiet, without pendulums or cold fronts rolling in. My body keeps a time I cannot read, handless, faceless still. I run 10 miles and call it an amulet. I scramble eggs, stir soup, and say, here are my poor comforts. Stay. My mother goes on, I gained too much, she repeats, but I was worried. She doesn't say, I built a house for what I've lost, for ghosts who never had eyes to open. I split my arms and legs to make the beams. I spit on the windows to shine them. I ground my teeth for bricks of pearl. And I invited you to live there and eat their food and grow by their light. Another one. Is it a common belief that the appearance and resemblance of children depends on what the mother sees during the time she is leaving the mikveh and during pregnancy? A mikveh is a Jewish ritual bath. The placenta, a flicking projector. Your blood in the theater of mine, reclining. She looks like you, my mother says, of a 20-week sonogram. You're mostly bones and brain, but maybe that's all it takes. Inheritance settles first in the densest tissue. Sound waves lick the darkness, seeking what absorbs them. Meanwhile, propaganda streams through the blood, a red pulse on the screen. At last, a bra that fits, a better suitcase, personalized vitamins, a ticker of my own face in the lens. You don't know how to buy what's sold to you. Instead, you cut a pattern from the scraps at hand, a golem suit, a dream dress. Now we're in the future, my directorial debut. I look up all I can so you'll resemble the winter sky, or these 18th century cornices, or those sparrows perched in a tree adorned with a lace of shredded plastic bags, or this late snow that catches light but disappears when I step outside. I cannot edit this reel. Some moments are slow, and so I eat, and you and I pass the time that way. The highs and lows, carbohydrates dissolving, lipids silent fizzle like a fireworks finale. Other times, I want to stay awake all night so that you will have the sharp jaw of my loneliness, or the full cheeks of Jupiter's ecliptic. Daily, too, I read the news or walk past crumpled bodies in the city's tunnels, hold my breath so that you won't resemble what I learned to call despair, or more likely, so you'll resemble me and my selected part. A kind of surveillance, I admit. You'll collect your data, prepare your dossier, and be, I hope, merciless. You know now, a person can hide from many things, but not from the ribbon images unspooling before her eyes, nor from the echoes that trace her shape in the dark, her own unaccountable wish to be seen. Rebecca alluded to parenting in the pandemic. I'm just wondering how many people in the room did that? And some, okay, so I guess I'm speaking to my people. Yes, my daughter was born in May of 2020. So a lot of this book was written during my later pregnancy and her first year of life. So there's a lot of that kind of emerging from that time period. This is called In Plague Season, I Think of Jonah, and I'm just going to share a brief anecdote. My synagogue every year during the high holidays reads the biblical story of Jonah, as you're supposed to at that time of year, but they also do this amazing ritual where they actually have built a papier-mâché whale, and they have congregants get inside of the whale and say, if I ever get out of this whale, I will. It's sort of supposed to represent, what you'd like to accomplish if you could like shrug off your burden or whatever. So I'm borrowing that line. In plague season, I think of Jonah. If I ever get out of this whale, I'll plant a sapling and swear of tender earth. My love and I will wake and sleep on the same solid ground. The only waves will be of our own making, our own salt. I'll wake to watch gradations of the atmosphere that thin like a singer's scale until they break into mystery. Beneath me, straightening my spine, only the cold certainty of a ground that loves me back, that like a mother's milk invents medicine for the long shriek coursing through my body, that by its gravity chases out the coward taking refuge there. Jonah, who I've swallowed every season, you satisfy no hunger. You are never really born. Stay with me, you'll see. In an empty lot set for a sheriff's sale, I'll cradle the young boot ball, grip the still brittle trunk, watch the leaves blush neon in a reluctant spring. I'll hold you there, tight to the slim chance, while the climate blusters, while around our voyage, garbage undulates like a flock of starlings, threatening the dust. Thank you. Here's another question, and I'm going to read just two more. Thank you so much to Megan Quinton for having me back, and it's really lovely to read with you, and you, Jerry, and Laura. Thank you so much. 95. Is there a custom? Oh, I'm going to just preface this with one little bit of information. There's a reference to the Shema, which is the central prayer of Judaism that begins Shema Israel, which means Hero Israel. So we'll hear that a couple of times. 95. Is there a custom that when the child is born, one should whisper the biblical verse, Hear, O Israel, into his ear? 1. As in other galaxies, some colors must be hidden from the range of creatures' vision and transported to this world, go mad with reflection, fireworks of ochre, fuchsia, gold. So your voice was smothered in the black depths, the knotted ends of sound, where waves shoreless disappear themselves, until this first time it poured forth into whatever might cradle or repel it, might drink it down or harden it to glass. It tested every surface, tiled floor spotted with my blood, the ailing air beyond the birthing room, the skin of my chest charged now with listening. 2. On the tree of our names, we tell you, leaves are few and yellow. Next door, a child composes his nightly concerto of abandonment. Before dawn, I pour the kettle over Paco's roots. The soil refuses, repels water onto the white sill. Even so, the vine goes on repeating itself, a din of opening. On it, you practice your grasp, which has no opposite yet. Every few days, a petal concedes its leaf without argument. 3. After you go back to sleep, I cannot. Rocking you, I've passed you the papers required for crossing some border inside me. A wall I have built inside you too, organelle that sifts and separates. This document is an ancient song, one whose words I've made up to replace ones I've never known. When I picture the God it means, I imagine an ocean, it's sighing its only container, green body rocking itself to oblivion. Find them as a sign upon your hands, the document says. And back in bed, I tuck my hands in the elastic of my underwear. Hear, O Israel, and wait for sleep to bind me. Return me to the ocean's oneness, crumble the mountains and shore, before your voice again pulses over the air between our wombs. Your pledge of allegiance to the country in which you enter. And this is my last poem. Tefillah was slash is a women's prayer of the early modern period in Europe. Women really didn't have access to the daily Jewish liturgy, which was reserved for men. So in the lingua franca, which was usually Yiddish, they said their own prayers. She said this Tefillah on her child's first birthday, the world unfolding. It's May, no fallen leaves to herd into interrogatives. Still, the wind searches, calling the names of those it's driven out. The time between gatherings meanders on the year's grid, a river forced northward, like a graph that shows the country repeating mistakes in 2 different centuries. Absence takes the page, swims in it like ocean, no direction but float. An oriole skims the pond, his wings orange check marks confirm something about return. I command my body, run to leap again, skirt the puddle that collects each storm. Park staff send the smell of cut grass across the highway. The long closed exit is open now. Let the legs sprawl over unmarked graves until they're plowed and sown. On walks, my daughter reaches out to touch whatever is growing. The year turns over and over beneath her bare hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you again to Jarrett, Laura, and Leah. We have one more round of applause for all our